Almost everyone chiming in about their income is six figures this and six figures that. I want to start hearing from people making much less. What is your job? What are your hobbies? What is day-to-day life like making that income? Story 1. It's okay. I don't get to experience fancy trips like I have always wanted. I can't afford kids like I have always wanted. I can't support my mom well like I have always wanted. I can't buy a house and I usually work 6 days a week. But I can put food on the table and survive, so there's that. Thank you for all the upvotes, everyone. I wish I could respond to everyone. I just want to say I hope for better days for each and every one of you. I truly don't have much. I feel like I'm surviving more than living, but having food to eat is something that cannot be underappreciated. I may feel broke, but again, if you can have a full belly, that is something many people may not have, or even the ability to just get up and grab a burger. Many aren't so lucky. Story 2. I make about $45,000. I work in golf course maintenance. It is blue-collar work but low stress and requires low commitment outside of regular working hours. Living alone with no partner or children is pretty inexpensive. I have not much debt but not much credit either. I am not very interested in dating. I am a solitary person. I have been camping for decades, so I have lots of gear I have gradually collected. It is not as expensive as starting fresh. I play disc golf, which is free where I play. I also get free golf at work, which is an amazing perk because I could never afford to play this course otherwise. I fish a lot too. Being on the coast, I can fish in the Sound, the beach, or the river. That also provides food. I actually have multiple college degrees. I could have a high-level job, but I choose not to. Story 3. I live alone with my cat and have about $5,000 in debt that I can't seem to get ahead of. I live in the middle of a small walkable city and don't pay for a car or gas, but rent is 50% of my income. I don't have many plans for the future, but I like my entry-level job and can see myself doing it for a long time. It serves the community, and I get plenty of vacation time. My hobbies are low-cost: drawing, playing the same 5 video games, playing with my cat, and riding my bike. I like my life. Story 4. Honestly, it's all right. Could it be better? Of course. I'm in logistics. I'm a shift supervisor for a motocross company. The manager here is what really keeps me here. Anytime I need time off for my kids, I get it. I've left mid-shift for awards assemblies, doctor visits, and I've even brought them into work with me. I work a few miles from my wife, and if we meet for lunch, I have no problems texting my manager saying I'll be 10 to 15 minutes late. My wife and kids had a Friday off and they came for lunch. I got a text mid-lunch from my manager asking if I just wanted to leave and not to worry about clocking out. I would love to make more money, but those small moments mean more to me. I work Monday through Friday from 4 a.m. to 1 p.m., with overtime when needed. We have our Knott's Berry Farm season pass in Southern California. My wife and kids make good use of it. We take advantage of every discount or percentage off deal. Do we struggle at times? Yes. Do we make it work? Always. Story 5. I work as a mail carrier and make about $50,000 a year. Rent for my 1-bedroom apartment takes an entire paycheck. I don't have many hobbies. I wish I could train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts, but it's too expensive. I just have a gym membership, that's it. I wish I could buy and eat healthier foods, but with my budget, I usually can't afford it. The pay wouldn't be too bad if I was single and lived with my parents, but I have a family and it's certainly not enough. I will be switching careers eventually because I can't do this much longer. Story 6. Just about retired. No car debt, no credit debt, only a mortgage. We live in an affordable area. We are not rich, but we are comfortable and can go out when we want. We still go on trips every few years. Mostly low-maintenance hobbies like gaming and reading. We are both under 40 and will be done working very soon. Over the years, making $40,000 to $50,000 annually, my wife and I never added debt and invested toward accessible income that isn't restricted by age or time. Now those investments have reached a point where they generate more monthly income than we both make. So we are taking out less than what they generate, allowing the investments to still grow while ending work. If you want a $500,000 plus house, a $60,000 plus car, and constant trips, buying new things all the time, and that is what makes you happy, go for it. But my wife and I were on the same page. Our goal in life was to work as little as possible, be home as soon as possible, and raise a family. We have achieved our goals. The secret was not incurring unnecessary debt. My wife and I both contributed to this goal, and it was only possible because of both of us. So our combined income range was $80,000 to $100,000. I do not want anyone to misunderstand that this was only myself earning $40,000 to $50,000 alone. Story 7. I'm assuming this is United States targeted because $40,000 to $50,000 in many developed countries is above the median salary. Story 8. Northern United Kingdom here. Only 40 to 50,000 pounds. I wish I made that much. That seems like a dream to me. Currently on 27,000 pounds, the highest I have ever been paid. Just making things work. I would benefit hugely on only 40 to 50,000 pounds. I think I only know one person who makes that much, and they are doing very well for themselves. If we are talking 40 to 50,000 US dollars, I think my income converts to around 36,000 US dollars. Story 9. This all depends on where you live and who you are responsible for. I know plenty of young men making under $50,000 living just outside mid-sized United States cities and doing well at supporting themselves, paying their student loans, rent, and still having spare money. It would be tough with a family to support. If you learn wants versus needs and stop worrying about what other people have, life is easier. Story 10. Teacher here. I manage on less than $50,000, but it is certainly a struggle at times. I have to budget very efficiently and stick to it. Unfortunately, it is not sustainable. My district's pay scale does not keep up with inflation, so if I stay here, I will get a pay cut every year. Education is in a bad spot in most states right now. Story 11. Speaking from the perspective of someone in Germany, the median salary here is 52,000 euros before tax. I make about 40,000 euros before tax, which comes to 27,000 euros after tax, working in an energy engineering office. On top of that, there is a 19% value-added tax on almost all purchases, making the total rate of taxes and dues around 46%. Rent is 550 euros for me, which is fairly cheap these days. I think the average rent is between 700 and 900 euros per person. Food, which I tend to spend more on because I enjoy cooking a lot, and beverages average around 500 euros for me. I do not tend to go on vacations. I only take short trips at most once a year somewhere within the country. I travel by train and choose affordable hotels and activities. The most expensive trip I took was 3 days in London, which cost about 1,100 euros including all expenses. I saved up for it, had my fun, and never did that again. The next holiday was 1 week in Frankfurt am Main with someone else, so we shared transportation costs and such. That totaled around 800 euros. It was an interesting trip. I walked to work, about 2.5 miles each way. I do not own a car, I do not buy brand name clothing, I buy things in bulk when they are on sale, and every piece of furniture I own is secondhand. The reason I do all this is not because I cannot afford more, but because I try to save and invest 20 to 30% of my net salary each month. I am by no means rich, nor do I live fancy, but I have some savings and a small amount invested. When I look at my peers, I see many living more extravagantly than I do, but none of them are debt-free. None have any relevant savings or investments, nor do they care about either. It is all about living life to the max. And if things get difficult, welfare and the government somehow are supposed to magically fix it for them. Story 12. It feels like all my friends are way ahead of me. They have families, well-paying jobs, and places of their own. I like my job, I really do, but I am just very tired. I work and then go home to an empty house every day. There are no good dating options where I live. It feels like I am waiting for a ship that might never come in. Story 13. I am 54 years old and make about $45,000 living in South Florida. I will be deceased before I retire. I am not working harder or taking on a second job. My hobbies are video games and disc golf. There is no money for dating. Story 14. I was in the $40,000 to $50,000 range for many years. Recently, I went up to the $70,000 range. I am married with 4 children, and the price of everything has increased substantially, so it feels like I did not even get a raise. I am still living paycheck to paycheck. Story 15. I am making $30,000 a year as a 27-year-old. I live together with my brother, who is still studying, and to be honest, everything is working just fine. I play games a bit, spend time with friends, recently started dating, and I am busy with a new study I am doing on the side. I cannot really afford a vacation without saving for a few months, but life is good. Story 16. In Europe, outside big cities like London and Paris, and in countries like Switzerland, you are perfectly fine with 40,000 net per year. You are in the upper class with such a salary. I earn 3,200 net per month. My girlfriend earns 2,700, and we own a house. We go on holiday 3 times a year plus a few city trips. We eat everything we want, including good quality food, and we go to a restaurant about once a week. We are on our way to investing in an apartment. We are both 31 years old with a 2-year-old child. On top of that, we both have our own hobbies, tennis and hockey. We can pay a babysitter once a week to have an evening together. We could do it more often, but we want to spend time with our child. Story 17. So I am in a developing country, but generally speaking, for many people here, having a survivable income is manageable, but not always. Personally, after some conversions, I make the equivalent of $6,000 per year. This includes bonuses and holiday incentives. Is life manageable? Yes. Is it fun? Not really. You can afford maybe one dine out a month if you really want to go all out. Medical emergencies are enough to put you in crippling credit debt for a decent time, and because of my transportation situation with no cheap or easy public transportation options, I end up paying around a third of my yearly income for fuel, which is increasing heavily throughout the year to eventually include half my salary. Day-to-day life is simple. You don't buy what you don't essentially need. Need water? Best fill up on tap water before leaving home. Hungry and need food? Normal snacks can add up in cost, so use more efficient alternatives like cucumbers, carrots, or if it's really difficult, chewing gum to make you feel like you're eating. Subscription services are out of the question. Clothes can be bought maybe once or twice a year, only a pair each for me and my wife separately. Thinking about having kids keeps me awake at night because how am I supposed to help a soul grow in this economy? All in all, you learn to live without the luxuries in life. I am grateful for a roof over my head and food on my table every night, however little it is. At the end of the day, we're still here. Story 18. German here who makes a little less than 50,000 euros. I assume the post is from and for Americans. In case someone cares about the European side, living fine, rent easily affordable, currently taking a loan for a big car that I could afford twice over before going broke every month. Still having delicious food on the table and enough money left over to save for other things. My job is network administrator. My hobbies are gaming, 3D printing, and in summer, swimming. Story 19. Amazing. I have a wife who makes 3 times as much, works 28 hours a week at a fairly simple but rewarding job, has a house and family, and a really warm sense of love in my life. I get to focus on being a parent and realizing that I can play an integral part in life without just measuring it in dollars. Story 20. I make $40,000 a year at my job. I have a stay-at-home wife and a child. I love my life. Yes, it is hard sometimes, but I love my job and my family. I get to do cool things often. I am working on getting a better job, but am still training. I am in no rush. It will happen when it happens. To answer your questions, I work at a small airport. I have many friends who take me flying, and I fly whenever I can. We do not have many luxuries, and our bills are minimal, but we have definitely learned how to live with what we have. Story 21. Life is pretty nice. I'm talking Europe, Italy. My wife makes about 25,000 euros a year, and we work in the same seasonal field that keeps us very busy for 5 months per year. Then we are pretty much free. I run my family business, and she is the head manager of the same establishment in the area. We have a 9-year-old boy, 0 debts, and enough savings to cover any sudden emergencies. I've just bought a new heating system. With our government's aid for those who replace older systems, The price dropped from 12,000 euros to 6,800 euros. I paid cash for it. I also just replaced a gas boiler for 1,100 euros. Again, paid in cash. We live a frugal lifestyle. We rarely go out for dinner, and we always buy things for the long run. We can afford nice hotels during vacations. We usually travel twice a year, once within the European Union and once overseas, flying coach. Her car is paid off, and I recently got my first new car in 20 years. The monthly payment is 350 euros, plus about 300 euros per month for fuel and insurance. I plan to drive it for at least 10 years. It will be paid off in 5. We are lucky to have our homes either paid off or inherited from our parents, which is common in Italy. My parents' home is in my name too, and it is a prestigious home with high value. Again, we are very frugal. For example, when I say to my wife, "Let's go shopping. I'll buy you whatever you want," she picks out sneakers worth 20 euros, and that's it. Our free time is our real asset. We both lead an active lifestyle. I have been working out and doing cardio for the past 29 years. She lived in London for 10 years, so she walks a lot instead of using a car. We also watch our food intake. For example, I buy 3 beers, and it takes me 5 months to finish them. We avoid sodas and eat very little meat. Designer or expensive items never mattered to us. When I cared about them in my youth, it was to compensate for something missing in my life. I always ended up selling those items like a Rolex watch. I see plenty of SUVs, Porsches, and designer clothes at my son's public school, and I really cannot understand people throwing money away on those things, especially when 90% of them cannot actually afford it. Story 22. I don't really fit, but I am making $62,000. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, so to me, it is all about priorities and what is important enough to spend money on. Story 23. I make right around $50,000 and I am very comfortable. I live in a rural area in the mountains with an extremely low cost of living. My property taxes are less than $1,000 a year, and my mortgage is only $420 a month. My biggest monthly expense is diesel for the truck, followed by the cost of food. However, I have a large garden and produce a lot of the vegetables we consume. I would not trade my life to live in an area where I make 6 figures. My hobbies include hiking and camping. My husband makes slightly more than I do, so combined, our household income is 6 figures. As a household, we are very comfortable. Story 24. I have just enough to focus and worry about myself and my hobbies. I cannot afford to invest in a house unless I choose the modular home option. I live in a very small apartment. I am too physically unfit to put myself out there and try to date. I have no confidence or self-esteem. Because I am poor, I feel angry all the time at myself and the world. I am constantly considering suicide as an option. These are the days of our lives. Story 25. For context, median personal income in the United States is $43,000. For many people, $40,000 to $50,000 is a decent but not great job. That amount is a livable wage, but they would struggle to buy a home as a single person. Median household income is $80,000 in the United States, but the median household size is 2.6 people, resulting in $40,000 or less per person. Story 26. It's not so bad. I'm a sole proprietor, so I generally get to set my own hours. I do what I love, music, so work doesn't feel like work. No kids, I could never afford them. I rent a nice loft studio in a walkable city. No car payment, no debt besides some student loans. I live frugally and mostly cook at home. No food delivery, ever. I ride public transit a lot and rarely order rideshares. I shop at thrift stores. My social life is fulfilling with lots of friends in the industry. My best friend lives a few blocks away, and we frequently hang out and watch movies together. I often play video games until I fall asleep. Life is pretty good, honestly. Story 27. Almost everyone chiming in about their income claims 6 figures. I bet all those people are over 6 feet tall too, right? Nobody lies on the internet. Story 28. I earn $47,000 in New York State. For hobbies, I play golf during the spring, summer, and fall 4 to 5 days a week. In the winter, I participate in 2 bowling leagues and occasionally go snowboarding. My wife makes slightly less than I do, and we make it work. We own our house without a mortgage, which certainly helps. There is food on the table, and I am a great cook, so it is never dull. As a federal civilian employee, my job and health insurance are at risk. I do not know how long this situation will last, so I am focusing on my hobbies as a distraction from the mental strain and instability at work. Story 29. In the United Kingdom, 40 to 50,000 pounds is respectful. With my wife and I earning around this amount, we have 2 newish cars, a 3-bedroom house on an affordable mortgage, and multiple international holidays. The key thing here is no children. 2 years ago, I was contracting on 110,000 pounds, but the stress was not worth the rewards. I am in my 40s now and winding down. Less stress and a substantial pension to retire in about 10 years. I have my plan, and if I could offer any advice, get that work-life balance right and always secure a good pension plan. Story 30. Fine. I worked trades for a decade while my wife was in school and starting her early career, 6 days a week, and made almost all of our money so she could focus on school. I broke my back in an accident and had to move to something much less strenuous in 2018. Now she makes the majority of the money with her degrees, and I work from home and homeschool our son. I earn a salary of $45,000 a year and only work 3 to 4 days a week, alternating. I work for an iBank. I could make more for sure, but I'm trying to preserve what's left of my mobility for another 30 or so years if I can. Being able to be with my son while he grows up is also a plus. As for hobbies, I like to repair things around the house, play older games, and do simple yard work like gardening. We find the money for a trip out of town every 6 months or so. Day to day is fine. Sometimes there are money problems, but it's usually things like the furnace dying or other normal big expenses that most families would find hard to deal with. Story 31. I am a 30-year-old male making a little over $40,000 working in local government. I am in a relationship with no children and consider myself frugal and utilitarian. I am able to eat out when I want and travel a decent amount. I do have a little bit of debt, but never miss a payment and am always working hard. Story 32. I make decent money now, but I spent years earning that level of income. I lived in small apartments and didn't really struggle to make ends meet, but it was hard to save money. Big ticket items would be nice, but I can't afford it. Working hard to save all year amounted to a few $1,000s saved per year. I felt a fair amount of stress about my car, since replacing it would not have been trivial, and payments would have prevented me from saving money at all. It felt like whatever I did save would end up going toward that next car anyway. When I started earning more money, around $70,000 to $90,000, most of it went to tax-advantaged accounts such as the 401k plan, individual retirement account, and health savings account. So my net worth improved, but my lifestyle remained pretty similar. I still felt strapped for cash most of the time. My focus was on financial security and retirement more than lifestyle. Still, it felt much better because there was a light at the end of the tunnel, like a comfortable retirement was in the cards. Instead of balances staying pretty static, they increased each month, ignoring market fluctuations. Now I make enough to max out tax-advantaged accounts and save money outside them as well. Retirement before retirement age is actually a possibility. Also, 3 upgrades feel significant. 1. I live in a small home instead of renting a small apartment. A small home is significantly larger than a small apartment, so it feels significant. For me alone, 1,200 square feet is where things stop feeling cramped. Apartments were around 750 to 900 square feet. My home is 1,600 square feet. Most of the extra space is a guest bedroom, so day-to-day living space feels close to 1,200 square feet. Also, having a garage is great. 2. I have house cleaners come once a month. 3. I take 1 to 2 vacations per year. Part of this was money, but another part was that my earned time off increased significantly as my tenure with the company increased. The biggest difference, though, is mental. I still live pretty frugally day to day, but now instead of not possible, a lot of things are totally possible but not worth the money. For example, I drive a beat-up 9-year-old car that was under $22,000 when it was new. I could buy a new car in cash next week if I wanted to, but I'd rather have the money than the car. Story 33, 2 children, a mortgage, a vehicle loan payment, and all of life's expenses. Things get tight sometimes, but I manage. I feel like those making 6 figures or more and still struggling are people living beyond their means and trying to keep up with others. Story 34, pretty awesome. Happily married with 2 kids, aged 21 and 17. I read water meters for the city. Lots of exercise and optional overtime. Paid per task. I go home with full pay when finished. I made $56,000 last year. My wife and I split everything down the middle. Some days I work 3 hours, most days around 6, and some days 10 to 12 if I want to stack hours and do overtime. Monday through Friday with benefits and paid holidays. My hobbies are video games, fishing, and eating. I am a homebody. We go out to eat occasionally but mainly cook at home. It is a comfortable life in a rented house. Rent is $1,500 a month for 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, about 20 minutes south of Dallas. I usually take a vacation once a year. I have an old Camry with no car payment. My wife just finished paying hers off. We plan to drive both cars until they wear out. You always want a little extra spending cash, but I am happy. We just have to plan a little more in budget. Story 35. It is good. I have a house, a truck, and a motorcycle. Every other month, I go camping at some property I bought several years ago. It would be better if I had a man to share it with. Story 36. I make about that as a pastry chef. It has been a struggle at times, but I am not in debt and I have some savings. I do not have many hobbies, but I enjoy getting out in nature and hiking, biking, and swimming. I also like playing games, watching shows, and going out to eat occasionally. Usual days are wake up at 5 a.m., into work by 6 a.m., meal at 10:30 a.m., home around 3 p.m. for lunch with my wife, some chores, maybe a walk, a show, then dinner, shower, and sleep around 9 p.m. Days off usually include lounging around, maybe a nice brunch, a walk, and some chores, maybe a longer vacation 3 to 4 times a year. It is boring. Story 37. I have a job that does not cause me a lot of stress, get to meet some cool people, and occasionally get to do something enjoyable on someone else's dollar. I am a bachelor with a cat. I pay rent to my friend for my own part of the house, and I play golf 3 to 4 times a week. It is not the lavish lifestyle I imagined as a child, but I am not unhappy with where I am. Not exactly excited, but definitely not unhappy. Story 38. I'm okay, looking for a new apartment. I'm also doing things to try to make more money. Hopefully, I will not be in this position for much longer. Where I live, the money I make is just barely enough to avoid slumming it. I can pay my bills and I can afford to go out to eat occasionally. I could even afford a small vacation if I saved up a bit. I still have to budget. I bought my car used, and I've had the same phone for 3 years. I certainly couldn't pay for another person. I don't know how people do that. Story 39, only 40,000 to 50,000. That is some triggering nonsense. Do you want to judge a man based on a number? Make it the number of women he has been with. Story 40. It is difficult. I struggle to get by and have 20% of my income taken for child support. I cannot afford to do fun activities with my child, so he rarely wants to come over. If I did not have a new partner, I could not afford to live on my own. Even with 2 of us, we struggle. We probably eat out too much, but she does not cook, so if I am too tired to prepare food, that is our option. I rarely get a vacation, and when I do, it is financially tight, so we do not get to do many things. Story 41. It's okay. I'm not American, so I earn more than the median income. I still can't see myself driving a new car. I am just now thinking of how to trade in my car for a 5-year-old Toyota Corolla if I can even afford it. A house is not really an option currently. I have around $20,000 saved for it, which is about 1/5 of the minimum down payment of 25% needed for a 3-bedroom house in a cheap city. Besides that, everything is good. I have 1 to 2 weeks of vacation a year abroad. I like working out, hiking, cooking, and do-it-yourself projects. Story 42. Not an issue in most other countries, for example, Europe. Cost of living is lower, free healthcare, holidays, no risk of being shot, etc. Story 43. Currently making less than that in Australia while working part-time as I finish my degree. My wife is the breadwinner. It is frustrating. We are quickly getting priced out of just about everything while our income has not increased at all. Story 44. On about £35,000, we are a family of 5, 2 adults and 3 children, and my partner also works. It is not enough for a fancy lifestyle, but we have a family holiday now and then. When we cannot, we make do with something locally when the weather is good. My salary alone is enough to cover all the bills and mortgage. We are fortunate to have gotten onto the property ladder when we did, as we would probably struggle heavily in today's United Kingdom rent market. I do not know how one can afford over £1,000 a month just on rent. Life is okay as I am not chasing a 5-star lifestyle, nor am I looking to provide a luxury lifestyle for the children. I feel that once some of our debts are cleared, such as the car and house renovation, then we will be more comfortable. Story 45. For any Western men who are reading this, if you work remotely in your country, consider moving to a developing nation. Your income will give you an amazing life there. For $1,000 a month is enough to live very well. Story 46. Don't come close to that personally. My household income is higher than that, but we live paycheck to paycheck. We have a mortgage and a car payment, which are expensive. I have very little savings and an investment account. I will probably be late to my funeral because I had to work. Story 47. It is difficult, especially in the late 40s with a young family and after working more than 25 years in the same industry. However, layoffs always seem to find me no matter what position I am in. Story 48. 5 out of 10, do not recommend. 50 neck-down jobs in 26 years. Always just been the worker with the strong back. Farms, factories, and similar jobs. I make enough for mortgage, groceries, and a couple of other essentials, but I have had collection agencies after me for years. You cannot squeeze blood from a stone. Never had a new car. Could not afford to finish college. It is what it is. Story 49. Living with 2 roommates and being extremely frugal. I have saved up a nice emergency fund and am investing the rest into index funds. I barely buy consumer goods, do not travel, and primarily rely on digital media for entertainment since the cost-to-time ratio is very good. Story 50. I make $53,000 while living in Florida in a moderately sized city. If I leave my current job for a higher-paying one, which I intend to do, I can sell my sick and vacation time and get roughly $10,000. This will help pay my largest credit card bill of $15,000. Cannot buy a house right now. Dating is hard. Vacations to nice places are difficult because I cannot afford them. Story 51. Earning 6 figures no longer guarantees financial security. You might buy a slightly larger house in a better neighborhood and still live paycheck to paycheck. Story 52. I am in school, so it is a special case. But even at my best, I was only making about $24,000 a year. It is difficult. I struggle and cannot afford things I want or need. I worry about car problems and cannot afford basic necessities. I have never taken a vacation before. Story 53. I had been in this situation for a decade, and it was depressing with 2 kids. I lived paycheck to paycheck, basically earning just enough for my monthly expenses. After that decade and reaching my mid-30s, I had 0 personal savings, no retirement plan, and some significant debt. Luckily, I got a great job and started to save, but much of that will be for my kids' future as I plan to work until I retire. Story 54. It depends on which city or town the person lives in. I know small towns where $25,000 can provide a comfortable life. 2 years ago, I spent almost a decade making close to $40,000 in a southeastern city of 100,000 people. My life was very comfortable. I made $350 payments on a new car, and my rent was $750. I could save money to do whatever I wanted. Story 55. I have a friend who lives around this area, and he is doing okay, not great, but okay. He doesn't have children. He shares an apartment with his girlfriend and likes to have a newer car most of the time. The The car is a complete waste of money, but it is what he likes. I think it was a Subaru Crosstrek, so definitely a wasteful purchase. If I had to guess, it was one of those purchases where he got caught up in the desire, common among lower-income people, to have something fancy in their life to feel proud of. He does not travel, but he goes out and drinks socially at bars, similar to the show Cheers. He wears nice and newer, but not expensive, clothing. When we meet up, there is not much he cannot do with us. If he broke up with his girlfriend, he would most likely need a roommate immediately or have to move back home, which is an issue somewhat hidden by his current situation. He undergoes dialysis several times a week, so scheduling a part-time job is almost impossible for him. I have no doubt he would admit to wishing he earned more money to live more comfortably and feel more successful, but anyone in a marginally worse situation would probably love to be in his place. Story 56. I had to move back home after my roommate moved in with their partner, and I couldn't find another. I decided to get a car while I am here and pay it off. I am not upset about money issues. I make enough to explore new hobbies, and my job has a far-reaching impact on the world, which is important to me. It is better than making a billionaire, just a little more money. Not that I am criticizing anyone who has that type of job. Do what you need to do to survive. But for me, it prevents me from hating my job completely. Story 57. I make a higher income, and my wife is around that range. I can confirm she is criminally underpaid, and if we both made that, it would still be a huge struggle. It's a struggle with my income as well, around $70,000 to $80,000. This is also in Canada, so you could take 20 to 30% off to convert to US dollars. I read something the other day that showed the cost of living in 1975 compared to wages. The costs of a house, car, and everyday necessities went up by about 1,000%, but our wages have only risen by about half of that. It does not add up. Story 58. I'm hanging in there, but barely. I make a little over $50,000 a year, and I recently got my first apartment, so I am in a better place now than I was a year ago, but I still have a ways to go. I have gone back to school to get my master's degree, so hopefully that helps. My job is covering most of the cost, and I am still working on getting my spending under control month to month. I do have student loans from my undergraduate studies to finish paying, but they are on forbearance right now, so I do not include them in my budget at the moment. Other than work, I mainly go to the store once a week, and I might order takeout a few times a month. I do not really travel much, so I can save money on gasoline. I have a relatively new car that I like, but looking back, I probably should have gotten something cheaper if I had known my finances would be so tight right now, as I wish I had a little more money to play around with after all of my bills are paid. My sources of entertainment include one streaming service that I pay for and a few others that my family pays for but that I can use as well. I also play video games regularly. Story 59. $50,000 a year is worth a lot more in certain places than others. $50,000 in Buffalo, where I live, is like $100,000 in Miami, especially if you account for taxes. Story 60. I earn $60,000 here. I drive a nice German car that is a decade old but still running strong. I bought and remodeled a small home because it was the only real option. I vacation about twice a year, usually within the United States. I am not hurting for money, but I did without for a long time to build the safety net I needed to be able to do that. However, I will admit, I am feeling the crunch of this difficult economy. The bank just raised my escrow payment by $200 per month, bringing my total monthly payment to almost $1,000 on a $95,000 mortgage. Could be better, but I think it is about to get much worse for all of us. Story 61. I make about $30,000 a year net, but housing is provided for only $100 a month, so my expenses stay low. Honestly, I love my life. It is very relaxed. I work overnight shifts and my job is easy. I can usually play games, watch whatever I want, or learn for about half of my shift. I live and work at a major tourist destination and meet all sorts of people from around the world, which is wonderful. I can go to some of the most beautiful places within a day's drive. I am happy, healthy, and debt-free. At some point, I would like more, but I could have it much worse, so I will always be grateful. Story 62. Amazing. My wife does not work. We raised 2 girls in a 1-bathroom home, We take 2 vacations a year. We like beer ice cold. God has blessed us. Simple life. Story 63. I'm a tad above but nowhere near 6 figures. I work for an assessor's office. My hobbies are hiking, kayaking, gaming, and photography. Day to day is decent, pretty normal. I can't go on expensive trips all the time or have fancy cars like my 6-figure friends, but I have a really nice work-life balance. Low stress, and I still have enough energy for things like the gym, which I love. I have 2 roommates currently to offset housing costs until I'm making a little more in a couple of years. I try to live within or under my means and carry as little to no debt as possible. In my previous job, I was on track to be at or above 6 figures, but the high stress and terrible work-life balance were not worth it to me. I was living to work, and it sucked. Story 64. I live a modest life. I work full-time at a furniture store setting up floor displays, moving furniture, and preparing furniture for delivery and pickup, among other tasks. I also work part-time at Walmart in the self-checkout area. I find a lot of joy in helping people and socializing with customers. I set aside several hours a week to work out and stay in shape. I enjoy going out to eat or just relaxing with my girlfriend. We enjoy spending time together. I live alone in a small house with a small mortgage. It is my little piece of heaven, to be honest. I enjoy gaming with my friends in my free time, as well as watching videos about becoming a better relationship partner and improving self-confidence. I value peace much more than money or material things. Story 65. I currently make about $50,000 before taxes and deductions at age 27, so more like $47,000 to $49,000. I am working as an information technology technician in a healthcare setting. It is not as technically complex a job as I would like. The salary is enough to make a car payment and student loans, but not enough to move out on my own comfortably. Dating opportunities are pretty much non-existent because I have not found a good enough social outing, but I do have a nice gaming personal computer and plenty of books. Story 66. I think the big problem is that everything now is almost designed for people who are coupled up. For example, a $400,000 average home cost is affordable for 2 people making $50,000 each. They would be left with about $4,000 for the month after subtracting their mortgage from their net pay. Story 67. Where I live in Central Europe, 50,000 euros is not actually that bad. That is like 4,000 euros a month and way above the national average. Story 68. I'm doing all right. Right now, Nimoy is still living with a roommate, which is not ideal, but things aren't terrible all things considered. I have savings for the first time, which is huge for me, and I can still afford some inexpensive hobbies. Story 69. I work from home. My wife stays home with our youngest child, and our oldest is in school. We have relatively inexpensive hobbies and a certified pre-owned minivan with low miles, taking small road trips within our state. Things are cozy and relaxed because we enjoy spending time together and not going out. We reached this point with a lot of assistance. State aid, women, infants, and children program support, churches, and various jobs until I earned my degree. Even then, finding a good job in my field took a couple of years. My grandmother left her home to me in her will, but she was still paying a mortgage on it. I chose to buy it from her now so she could save money with a lower payment, and we wouldn't have to worry about probate when she passed. Fortunately, the housing market increased the value of her home significantly, so I was able to take out a home equity line of credit against it to pay for the car in cash. We don't currently live there because she is still alive, but we also don't pay rent since we live in a small family home paid off over the last 20 years. My mother moved into my grandmother's home to take care of her, so we have the house to ourselves. I pay the taxes and other bills as usual and invest in repairing and updating the house for when my mother moves back in, and we move to my grandmother's home after she passes. Before all that, we took over the car payment on a problematic sport utility vehicle my brother-in-law was going to let be repossessed. We chose to pay it in exchange for the car and to protect his credit. It was still expensive, especially when I was only making about $20,000 before taxes. All this to say, if we didn't have assistance and fortunate circumstances, including life insurance money my grandfather left behind, we would be struggling significantly. Childcare is so expensive that it is easier for my wife to stay home. When both children are in school, she may return to work, but for now, we have everything organized to get by and maintain some peace of mind. Story 70. I am not looking to have children and am currently single. When I have a long-term girlfriend, we usually live together and split bills according to income. I am typically the higher earner. I own my home with a mortgage. Computer gaming is my main solo hobby, but I try to have dinner with a friend at least once every week or two. I also try to find other fun activities regularly, such as wine tastings, laser tag, exhibits, fairs, and festivals. I participate in a Dungeons and Dragons group and am organizing a second role-playing game group that is more loosely structured. I visit out-of-state friends every month or two, and they visit me with the same frequency. These visits involve about 4 to 5 hours of driving. I aim to take a bigger trip once a year. I took 2 last year, so I am skipping this year to save money. When something breaks, I try to fix it myself, though I am not very skilled at do-it-yourself projects. Being a homeowner, I am learning. If I cannot fix it, I get help from family or friends before calling a repair person or replacing the item. I regularly go to a coffee shop for a morning drink. Without a work commute, leaving the house helps me feel more awake. I could save money by not going, but this routine is beneficial psychologically and prepares me for the day. Regarding savings, I have a small amount set aside for retirement. It is difficult to save much beyond that with my current lifestyle. I do save, but not as much as I would like. Balancing savings with living comfortably is challenging on a $50,000 income. It is not impossible, but requires prioritizing spending on what impacts my quality of life versus what can be cut. Story 71. Just keep in mind, the responses will vary based on the city they live in, how much debt they are paying off, how many children they have, if they are the primary earner in their household, how high their auto insurance payments are, whether they dine in or out, and so on. Also, if they work remotely, they can travel much more than the average person. If they have a trust fund, they can still live lavishly. Story 72. It's cool, I guess. I'm skipping some essentials like going to the doctor yearly. I could use some glasses, but most of my bills are paid, and I have almost zero debt. The hope is that raises over the next few years will be substantial enough for me to enjoy more and take care of the essentials without breaking the bank. For now, the gym, buying and eating healthy, and maintaining my car are my main hobbies. I still go on dates from time to time, but would rather not waste money when I have other things to pay for. Most of my entertainment is very inexpensive, so I'm lucky there. I am a federal government employee. Story 73. It is rough, especially if you grew up with a lot of promise and it seemed like you were destined to earn well. Nothing is guaranteed. Beyond the obvious financial struggle of staying afloat on that or even less, it is hard not to associate some degree of your worth with your paycheck. As your friends and peers start to advance in their careers and compensation, it can feel like you are being left behind. Story 74. Travel banker here. I usually work from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., but have about an hour commute each way, with mileage reimbursed. If we're counting mileage, I make around $52,000 annually, not including commission. I am located in the Tampa Bay, Florida area. I still live with my parents and am buying my first property for around $230,000 in the Pasco area, with a mortgage of about $1,500 per month, including taxes and insurance. My hobbies usually fluctuate over time. I spend more time on them when I have more free time. Currently, my hobbies are gaming. I used to go running or to the gym, but work has been so slow lately that I have been dreading going anywhere other than home after work. I also work part-time at Publix Pharmacy only on Sundays, earning around $100 per week. Day to day, my work is pretty simple and very low stress. The most annoying thing is dealing with the bank systems and having to jump through hoops to resolve issues using 5 or 6 different systems. I usually play on my phone during work or watch online videos on the computer. I usually don't check price tags. If I want something, I buy it, but I keep a spreadsheet of all spending and all income per month and per week. I would say if you're going into banking, you better love a slow job or enjoy making sales calls. Customers don't walk in, and some managers at my bank want to increase traffic, while others don't care if we do the bare minimum. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.